A woman called Maura had a dream where she saw her father committed her to a mental hospital against her will. When she was asking her father where her brother was, suddenly she woke up from her sleep. When she got up, she found a newspaper about a ship called the Prometheus that had been missing for 4 months. The disappearance of the ship remained a mystery because the Prometheus didn't leave any trace. Maura was on board a steamship that was sailing from London to USA. The passengers of that ship were categorized into 2 groups. The first group consisted of passengers that came from upper class. The passengers who came from upper class received extraordinary services during their voyage. The passengers who came from lower class were wedged closely together to sleep in that ship. When Maura had a lunch, a woman approached her to tell her about some passengers of that ship. She hadn't finished her story when a low-class man called Crester came. He asked for help from high-class passengers to save his sister. Maura was a doctor. She followed Crester, who was taken by some officers. After the officers left, Maura asked Crester about what happened to his sister. Crester took Maura to his sister immediately. Apparently, Crester's sister was in great pain because of the baby in her uterus. Maura examined Tove and tried to treat her. Finally, Tove wasn't in pain anymore. An illegal passenger was hiding in the boiler room. He was called Jerome. It seemed like he was searching for a room. Crester's little sister thanked Maura for saving her sister. When Maura returned to the deck, she was approached by the ship's captain called Captain Ike. Captain Ike and Maura talked about their life. Suddenly, Captain Ike's underlings came to inform Captain Ike that they detected a signal from the Prometheus. The vice captain named Sebastian believed that the signal they detected was from the Prometheus, which had been missing for 4 months. Captain Ike told Maura about it. Maura was surprised because it was hard to believe that a ship that had been missing for 4 months appeared suddenly. Captain Ike once received a letter from his relative who was a passenger of the Prometheus. There was a writing on it that said, "What is lost will be found." Captain Ike thought the writing was a riddle that needed to be solved. He told the passengers that their ship would turn around to pick up the Prometheus that had been missing for 4 months. In the cargo hold, Jerome stumbled upon a man called Oleg who was having a lunch. They agreed to be friends. On the deck, Captain Ike was surprised to see the Prometheus in front of him. He asked some people to go with him to check on the Prometheus, which looked like a ghost ship. As they were on board the Prometheus, Captain Ike was surprised to see that the ship was so messy and quiet. Maura asked Captain Ike how an abandoned ship like the Prometheus could send a signal. Captain Ike also wondered about that. In Captain Ike's steamship, a mysterious man climbed from underwater. In the Prometheus, Captain Ike and Maura found a boy was trapped inside of a cupboard.
Are you all right?
Who the boy and the mysterious man who came from underwater were remained a mystery. It seemed like the riddle got more complicated. When Captain Ike returned to his ship, he had a dream where he saw his family taking their own lives. He woke up from his sleep. There were knocks from Sebastian on his door. Sebastian received an order from the shipbuilding company to sink the Prometheus which they had found. Captain Ike was confused to hear it. In the bridge, the compass needle was moving uncontrollably. Captain Ike was looking for Maura to ask her about it. He told her that there had been many strange incidents since they found the Prometheus. When Maura was heading to her room, she encountered the mysterious man who then introduced himself as Daniel. Maura met the Prometheus boy to ask about what happened to the Prometheus and how he could survive by himself. But that boy didn't say a word. In the bridge, Captain Ike was still confused about why the shipbuilding company ordered them to sink the Prometheus. He thought that the shipbuilding company was hiding something, so he decided to go back to London and bring the Prometheus to them. He was curious about what actually happened to the Prometheus. Captain Ike tried to solve the riddle on the letter, which was a writing that said, "What is lost will be found." He thought that what happened to the Prometheus had something to do with that writing. When Captain Ike was heading to his room, he suddenly walked into his house and saw his family taking their own lives. He then climbed a ladder to his room in the ship. He was confused about what just happened. Captain Ike came to Maura and abused the Prometheus boy. He thought that boy was the cause of those strange incidents. Jerome approached a woman called Clements who was watching the Prometheus from afar. When he was heading to his hideout, he was caught by the ship's officers who had found out that he was an illegal passenger. Maura tried to find an answer from the Prometheus boy. That boy had many symbols of a pyramid. She asked him about the meaning of those symbols. That boy didn't say a word. Daniel released a green beetle from his hand. Crester's little sister saw that beetle and tried to catch it. Daniel took the beetle and said that it was his beetle. In the dining room, Captain Ike told the passengers that they would go back to London and bring the Prometheus with them. Some passengers disagreed with him because they wanted to start a new life in USA. At night, when Captain Ike tried to sleep, his underling called and informed him that a girl was found dead. In the dining room, a Japanese woman called Lingy joined the dinner. In another room, Captain Ike called a doctor to find the cause of the death of Crester's little sister. The doctor who examined her was confused because there was no wounds or signs of physical abuse. He assumed that Crester's little sister died due to heart attack. In the bridge, Captain Ike was called by his underling to check the situation outside. A new problem came up. A mysterious fog appeared and blocked their way to return to London. Because it was dangerous for them to sail in the fog, Captain Ike ordered his underlings to stop moving once the fog disappeared. In Captain's room, Maura began to think that everything that had happened was not real. Captain Ike didn't believe her. He asked Maura to go back to the Prometheus with him to find any clue about what happened to the Prometheus. He wanted to solve those problems. He believed that the Prometheus had something to do with those problems. Lingy argued with her mother about something. As Lingy was running away from her mother, she saw her pass when she was killing someone to get onto that ship.
Give me a hand. Hurry.
Oleg was on patrol and woke her up accidentally. A Captain Ike's underling called Franz attempted to rebel so they wouldn't get involved in those problems. Franz told Tove that her little sister had passed away. He said that Captain Ike didn't care about it. Then, he asked the low-class passengers to join him in a rebellion against Captain Ike. In a room, Daniel met the Prometheus boy. It seemed like he was communicating with him. That boy shook his head when Daniel stared at him. When Lingy was with Oleg, a strange fog suddenly approached her. Lingy saw her pass while her mother was with the woman he had killed. She suddenly felt regretful.
Listen, you need to go. I have something I want to show you. I love it. And how to speak Japanese.
Franz just returned from the low-class room. He found that more people had died under mysterious circumstances. At the same time, Captain Ike found the passenger list of the Prometheus that had been burnt. Luckily, he could still find some names from that passenger list. In another room, Franz and Sebastian wondered about who was the murderer in their ship. Franz thought that there might be an imposter who was responsible for everything that happened. He believed that the imposter was the Prometheus boy. When Maura returned to her ship, she was approached by Daniel, who tried to say something to her. Before Daniel said a word, Franz and other low-class passengers passed by them. They wanted to catch Captain Ike and the Prometheus boy.
Returning the ship.
In his room, Daniel had a strange device that could make the Prometheus disappear. Was Daniel the real imposter? Let's find out about it. Franz caught Captain Ike and people who didn't obey him. He told Jerome and Oleg to go to the deck. Apparently, the number of people who died under mysterious circumstances had increased. Franz told Jerome and Oleg to throw the dead bodies to the sea. Franz and his crew just realized that the Prometheus had disappeared. Franz wondered about what was happening. He insisted on catching the Prometheus boy. In another room, Captain Ike was helped by a man called Ramiro to escape from there. Jerome and Oleg tried to make a plan to escape from Franz's crew. Maura's room was searched by Franz and his crew to find the Prometheus boy. After they searched for a while, they didn't find anything about the boy. When Maura checked under her bed, she saw that boy hiding in a secret place. Franz took control of the ship and told everybody to stay in their own room. In her room, Maura tried to ask the Prometheus boy again about what was happening, but that boy didn't say a word. He released a green beetle instead. The beetle crawled somewhere. Captain Ike met people who were still siding with him. Maura and the Prometheus boy followed the green beetle. They didn't realize that Crester was watching them. Turned out, the green beetle was heading to Captain Ike, who was trying to run away. When Captain Ike and his crew were about to leave the ship, Franz came and pointed a gun to them. He told Captain Ike to bring the Prometheus boy to him. He believed that boy was the imposter. On the deck, Franz's crew and Captain Ike's crew got into a violent fight. Maura tried to rescue the Prometheus boy who was going to be thrown into the sea. Unfortunately, she failed to rescue him because the situation had gotten out of control. Captain Ike told his crew to withdraw from the fight. In the dining room, a sound came from a cupboard. When the cupboard was opened, the Prometheus boy came out of it. Everybody thought this incident was beyond human logic. Because Captain Ike thought that boy wasn't human, he locked him in a room. Franz was still in command of the ship. He planned to sail to their former destination. Tove was trying to join Captain Ike's crew, but she accidentally shot the Prometheus boy who had been accused as the murderer of her sister. Suddenly, time stopped. There were only Maura and the Prometheus boy who realized that time had stopped. Maura asked the Prometheus boy to leave that place with her. After Maura left Captain Ike and his crew, time returned to normal. Captain Ike began to suspect that Daniel had something to do with this. Not long after that, a sound of clock ticking was heard and hypnotizing some people. It looked like those people were ordered by someone through that clock ticking sound to go to the deck. Lingy saw her mother was being hypnotized and taking her own life. Crester, Tove's brother, and other people who were hypnotized also took their own lives. For the first time ever, the Prometheus boy told Maura that she must ask the creator. Maura didn't understand what he meant. That boy asked Maura to follow him somewhere. Surprisingly, the secret room led Maura to a place from her past. Daniel was looking for Mora. He followed where Mora was going. When Daniel approached the Prometheus boy, the boy said that it would work this time. It seemed like everything that happened had happened before. On the deck, many people jumped from the ship unconsciously. Daniel came to an engine room to control a machine. A man who had never seen Daniel hit him because he thought he was a dangerous person. Not long after that, Daniel managed to stop the clock ticking sound that had hypnotized many people. Mora visited her old house and met her father there like she did in the beginning of the series. Her father injected her with a liquid because he thought she had lost her mind. Suddenly, Mora woke up on her bed. She realized that everything that was happening couldn't be understood by human logic. Mora showed Captain Ike the secret passage under her bed. The secret passage brought Captain Ike to his past where his family were taking their own lives. Mora and Captain Ike realized that everything that was happening was beyond human logic. Captain Ike found an important information about the captain of the Prometheus who turned out to be himself. There was also Mora's name on the passenger list of the Prometheus. Turned out, all of them were the passengers of the Prometheus that missed 4 months ago. In the bridge, Sebastian showed a device that was similar with Daniel's device. After the mass suicide incident, there were only several people left. Eventually, they agreed to reconcile with each other to find the solutions to their problems. Captain Ike divided works among people so their ship could keep sailing. He ordered the men to watch the fuels to keep the ship sailing. Meanwhile, he ordered the women to find safe places for them to hide. In a room, there was a strange black object which was getting bigger and bigger. Nobody knew anything about that object. Mora showed Captain Ike the secret passage under her bed that led them to another dimension. Mora told him that it was the place where she used to live in the past. In the boiler room, Lingy accompanied Oleg to shovel the coals to keep their ship sailing. Lingy and Oleg became closer to each other. Daniel didn't find Mora anywhere, so he came to her room and looked for her in another dimension. Mora was visiting her old house. She remembered that her father once did an experiment to find out about how human brain works. She thought that her father was the person who was responsible for everything. Captain Ike was suspicious of the place they were visiting. He was confused about what was happening. In the ship, a woman called Mrs. Wilson touched the strange black object. Suddenly, the black object spread through her body. Mora was seeing around her house. She was confused about a room there. As she remembered, a room she was visiting used to have a door. In the ship, when the power came back on, Ramiro panicked because nobody navigated the ship. He tried to learn how to navigate the ship by reading a book. In different dimension, Mora's father told Sebastian to find the Prometheus boy. Was Mora's father the person who was responsible for everything that happened? Let's find out about it. When Mora was heading to another room, Daniel came to inform her about something. Captain Ike pointed his gun to Daniel because he was suspicious of Daniel for knowing about that place. When Daniel was attacked by Captain Ike, he used his device to transfer Captain Ike to another dimension. Daniel tried to make Mora realize that this world was not real, but merely a simulation. Daniel told Mora to remember everything, but Mora couldn't remember anything. She told Daniel to lock himself in a room or she would shoot him. On a computer monitor, Mora's father was watching her daughter. At this point, it was clear who the real culprit was. At the same time, Captain Ike saw dozens of abandoned Prometheus in another dimension. Mora didn't believe Daniel, so she decided to return to her ship. A heavy storm was coming. Everybody tried to navigate the ship so it could keep sailing. Daniel was locked in a room. He tried to find a way out of there. It seemed like he knew about the alternative exit in that room. Sebastian was looking for the Prometheus boy. He was told by Mora's father to take a personal belonging of that boy. Daniel was trying to find Mora as quickly as he could. Mora's father smiled as he watched what everybody was doing from his computer screen. Daniel kept moving from one dimension to another dimension. He was getting closer to Mora. Mora was suspicious of Daniel. She came to his room to find information about him. Turned out, there was also a secret passage under Daniel's bed. When Mora visited a room under Daniel's bedroom, she saw a photo of her, Daniel, and the Prometheus boy. Daniel met the Prometheus boy to tell him that his mother didn't remember. Apparently, Daniel was Mora's husband and that boy was Mora's son. Sebastian was watching the boy's device. He finally found where that boy was. In Daniel's secret room, Mora finally met Daniel. Mora asked Daniel if she was his wife. Daniel said yes. He told her that everything they remembered was just a false memory, and that they didn't remember their true memory. He also told her that the Prometheus boy's name was Elliot and he was Mora's son. He said that they had been trapped in that artificial world for several times. It meant that this moment had happened before. Daniel told Mora to remember everything. Apparently, all of them were inside of their subconsciousness. This time, Daniel believed that Mora would wake up from her sleep. In the bridge, Lingy heard her mother was calling her. Turned out she just had a hallucination. Oleg saved her immediately. Unfortunately, he fell from the ship.
Not today.
In the boiler room, Ramiro lost his best friend because he was crushed by something. At the same time, Mora's father managed to catch Elliot. Elliot had a key that could wake them all from their sleeps. Daniel told Mora that they didn't have much time because the next simulation would happen. What he meant by simulation was that time would restart from when Mora woke for the first time in that ship. Mora's father opened the interdimensional portal at the sea so Mora's ship would enter another dimension. Captain Ike was surprised to see his ship was in the same dimension as him. Captain Ike swam to his ship. Everybody believed that there was something that caused all of these strange incidents. Mora told them that they were in an artificial simulation and not a real world, and the real them were sleeping somewhere. They didn't understand what Mora said. They thought that Mora had lost her mind. Mora showed them a key that could wake them up from their sleeps. They didn't believe in Mora and decided to leave the ship. They thought she had lost her mind because everything seemed so real to them. Captain Ike was the only one who believed in Mora. Mora remembered that Elliot had told her to ask the creator. Mora thought that the creator was her father who was watching them behind the scene. Daniel tried to hack a program to disturb the system of the simulation world. He did this in hope that Mora would wake up from her sleep. This moment had happened for several times. Daniel believed that Mora could wake up this time. Mora's father saw Daniel. He was mad because Daniel tried to reprogram the system of the simulation world. Daniel could disturb all systems that had been created. Mora was looking for his father whom she believed was the culprit of everything that happened. When Mora and Captain Ike visited a place, they met Sebastian who asked Mora for the key. Sebastian killed Captain Ike because Mora's father ordered him. He was also the one who killed all people in the ship. Mora was brought to her father. In that room, Elliot seemed sad. Mora was brought to a room where she woke up for the first time. Then, everything would start from the beginning again. In the boiler room, everybody watched flashes of lights that looked frightening. They now believed that everything was not real. Mora's father wanted to wake up. He inserted the key to a pyramid that had a writing, to wake up, but nothing happened. Mora woke up and saw her surrounding had been destroyed. She walked toward the light. Not long after that, Daniel came and said that he had made it. He had broken the rule of the simulation world to wake Mora up from her sleep. He told Mora that they were the ones who created the simulation world. Mora couldn't remember about it. Apparently, Mora's brother was the person who was responsible for everything. Daniel told Mora to wake up and take control of the simulation world that they had created. Because of Daniel, Mora finally woke up in a room. When she looked outside of a window, she saw herself inside of a spaceship. In that room, she found many people from the ship were sleeping. When she looked at a computer screen, she saw a project called the Prometheus which had thousands of participants. It was revealed that Mora was in a year of 2099. Mora received a message from her brother.